So we are going to get started this afternoon. Our topic is a time I wish I had an undo button. We all have those crossroads, and we turned right and we wish we had turned left. Or maybe we wish we didn't hit that crossroad at all. So you're going to hear a variety of experiences somehow connected to that topic. I'm not going to tell you anything about the storytellers or the stories until after they have spoken. Our next storyteller this afternoon, Mr. Steven Kartstein.
Well, I love mosquitoes, so anyways. I was raised in a Orthodox Jewish household. So you can imagine there are 1,000 rules that we had to follow on a day-to-day basis. These rules were mainly enforced by my father, and he was fairly strict. It was the way he was brought up, and it's the way we were brought up. He was a traveling salesman, so he was gone a lot. And while he was gone, my mother was a little more relaxed as far as things went, and life was a little simpler. But as soon as he came back, we kind of tightened up, and everything was towing the line. I guess you could say that of the rules, the big ones really had to do with being outside the tribe. You didn't date outside the tribe, and you certainly didn't marry outside the tribe. These were strictly forbidden when I was brought up. My father and I, from my earliest memories, butted heads. I was always the round peg that would not fit in the square hole that he expected his son to be. It was difficult, and as time wore on and I grew up and grew into my teen years, those differences became worse and worse and bigger, to the point where we were very adversarial. The difference is I would get up, and if he said stand up, I would sit down. If he said go left, I went right, and it just progressed from there to the point where we had nothing in common and had nothing to say to each other. So in my college days, I developed a friendship with the neighbor across the street, Lorraine. She was about 40 years old, and I was 19. So we were just drinking buddies. That's really all it was. I would go over to her house, we'd sit in the backyard, drink beer, shoot the shit. That's all we did. One day, another neighbor came by, Donna, who was also a drinking buddy of Lorraine's. And Donna was a good-looking woman. She was about 30 years old, so about 10 years my senior. She was also dark-haired, had green eyes, long legs. I was 19, so the bar was low. You know what I mean? Didn't really hurt. Anyways, so the three of us would sit together and have, just drink ourselves silly. And that was all we did. Well, when Lorraine wasn't around, I would go over to Donna's house. And I would sit in the kitchen with her, and we'd drink and do the things that we were doing. Eventually, we moved to the sofa, and there became some wrestling involved and other things, and there was a kind of a relationship that developed. Well, okay, so I eventually met her family as we stayed together. Her family consisted of her mom and her two sisters. Her mom, I don't know where her dad was. Don't know anything about him. Her older sister, Cecilia, she lamented her wasted life with her boyfriend, Jim, who was usually sitting, swilling something on the chair in the living room. And her younger sister, Brenda, was recently divorced, had 2 children of her own, 2 young boys. And when the 3 sisters got together in the kitchen, watch out. They would eventually, as the booze flowed with all 3 of them, they would start talking about men. Bad men. Men that drank, men that lied, men that cheated, men that stole, men that were just no good. Well, you kind of get the point of what was going on there. And I'm just sitting in the other room with Jim, minding my own business, trying to stay out of the fray. Okay, that's fine. I didn't really care. We went on, and Donna and I went on in our relationship, but there was pressure being brought in from her sisters and her mother, because they wanted to know where this relationship was going, because she's 30 years old, I'm 19, things are a little weird. So that pressure came down to me from Donna as a thought to legitimize the relationship. And her thoughts were to legitimize the relationship, marriage. Okay, well, I'm 19 years old. I'm not doing anything right now. So I thought, sure, let's get married. And the game was on. Okay? So anyways, one thing I forgot to mention, Donna had been previously married and she'd been divorced about 2 years. So anyways, just file that away in the folder, So the plans were being made. The three sisters just kind of took over and started making all the plans. We were going to go to the JP and then have a party afterwards. And anyways, my sole responsibility in the event was to tell my parents that this was going to happen. So I walked over to my parents' house, and I'm sitting there at the dining table with them, and my mother's sitting across from me. My father's in his spot at the head of the table. And I just there's no real easy way to do it, so I just said, Donna and I are going to get married. And it was just this silence at the table. And my mother is across from me, and I'm looking at her, and she's looking at me, and I could see the brain going, as she's trying to think of what to do, and all the time she's looking at my father, wondering what he's going to do or say. And I look over to him, and he's turning this really strange shade of red as his head is about to explode off of his shoulders. And eventually it did. And he started yelling, "What the hell's the matter with you? Why are you doing this? You will never bring that woman into this house. She will never be a member of the family. And as a matter of fact, you're no longer my son." Okay, well, what do you say to that, I left. Went back, plans continued. The happy day came. Nobody from my family responded that they were coming to the wedding. We ended up piling in the car, heading down to the Justice of the Peace office. And as we pulled in, well, who the hell do you think is standing there? My mother, my father, my sister, and my brother. And I don't know what my mother could have said to my father to make him get in that car and drive downtown and go to that event that he loathed beyond anything else in his life. I would have loved to have just been a fly on the wall, just to hear those words come out of her mouth and him actually agree. So anyways, we're standing there in front of the JP, and I've got the happy smiling faces on this side, and I've got the ice miserable people on this side. And Justice of the Peace starts in, turns to Donna, says, "Donna, do you take Steven to be your lawfully wedded husband?" On and on and on. And at the end of his speech, she goes, "Yes, absolutely, enthusiastically, I do." Happy time. He turns to me and says, "Steven, do you take Donna to be your lawfully wedded wife?" And I heard these words. They said, "I do." But it wasn't me that was saying them. It was somebody else. They were just out there somewhere. Because inside my head, my brain was telling me, no, this is wrong. No, a mistake is being made here. Stop. And then another voice came in and said, I now pronounce you man and wife. And we were husband and wife. Great. We went back. Everybody left. We went back to our place for the party. My parents stayed about 10 minutes and then split. Fine, whatever. Donna, at the end of the night, passed out drunk on the bed, and that was my wedding day. Okay. Well, things got worse from there, as you can probably imagine. Donna's drinking. She could always pack it away, and she was partial to Bud Light talls in the can. She started mixing in the hard liquor. And as she mixed in the hard liquor, her personality changed. And she became mean and angry and violent. And, she would string together words, 4-letter words, 5-letter words, combinations that I've never heard before and haven't heard since. She would accuse me of having affairs with everybody we knew. If we were in a room like this, yeah, I'm banging everyone. There's no doubt about it, including my own brother. And swear to God, and then things started to fly. It didn't matter what it was. If it was handy, when she was in a drunken rage, she would pick it up and fling it at me. Boxes, pencils, pens. One time the hairdresser flew by my head. It got to the point where I knew that if I didn't leave that relationship, that something bad, really bad, was going to happen eventually. Either she was going to do something or I was going to do something that we were both going to regret. So I ended up leaving. I got my own apartment. We separated. We were apart for a few months. During this time, the job I had offered me a position in Houston, Texas. And I thought to myself, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. I get away from this situation, separate, plus I get away from my family, just as far away as I possibly can. And that's what I did. I accepted the position. So I went over to see Donna to let her know that I was leaving and I was moving to Houston. So I'm standing there in the kitchen with her, and she is on her knees in front of me. And she has a hold of my pants like this. And she's looking up at me, and the tears are streaming down her face, the mascara along with them, and she is crying and sobbing, and they're begging me not to go, that we will work it out, it'll all be okay. And I said, no, I can't, I'm sorry. And I left, and I moved to Houston. A few months later, I came back at the end, for the divorce decree to be finalized. And went before the judge, told him the story, and the marriage was ended. And that was it. My father, for his part in it, we remained estranged for a decade longer. I was not invited to the family. I was not a member of the family. It took 10 years for us to have an uneasy peace, and it was an uneasy peace until he passed away a couple of years ago. Donna Meredith Kartstein kept the name. I didn't know that. I was sitting at my computer one day, and I have a Google search from my last name, Kartstein, and it popped up, an obit. Donna passed away in January of 2020, and we never spoke in the 40 years since I moved away. Thank you.
A little bit about Steven. Formerly the program and marketing manager of the Elks Performing Arts Center, Steven attempted to retire. He does not do it well. I would let him. Sometimes. He enjoys golfing, music, gardening, cooking, and reading. It's not surprising that he has a lot of involvement in the arts because as a 10-year-old child, he wanted to be a guitar-playing rock star or anything other than his father. Didn't want to be a salesman, and he didn't want to be a plumber, as he spent his weekends as his father's assistant in the lowliest and most unpleasant of roles in plumbing. Steven Kartstein.